Nice to see you all. Thanks for coming out. Just going to give you a quick overview of where we are at the moment as a club. I've been here now 4.5 months. Some will say, does it seem like 4.5 years? No, it doesn't seem like 4.5 years. It seems like 6.5 years. It's been interesting, very enjoyable. I found out during that time what I already knew really, that we've got a great club here. The community operation is absolutely fantastic. The academy is first class. We're doing very well in bringing players through. So I sort of already knew that, but to have it confirmed is great, and to be amongst it is great. The football club, did we get off to a slower start than we liked? Yes, of course we did. Would we have liked to have scored more goals than we have? Yes, of course we would. We all want the club to do well this season, to be fighting top half of the league. That's a work in progress. I think we've seen over the last 6, 7, 8 games that improvements are coming, and to be unbeaten in 6, only conceding 1 goal I think during that time is sure signs of improvement. We're only 7 points off the playoff positions. I think that's one more than when we were at the Senior Greens meeting a little while ago. Got a problem with that, Chris? No. So we are turning things in our favour. We do think that from a footballing point of view, we turned the corner. I've met a lot of different supporters groups. I've had a great time talking to them. It's been very enjoyable. I've travelled up to Lincoln and Mansfield on the train with the London branch, which was interesting, fun, difficult after we missed the train back from Lincoln. That was an interesting experience, and I see one of my travelling colleagues over there. And I think that the future is going to be really good when we get the sound system sorted out.
You might turn on coming in.
So, as far as the off-field side is concerned, we're in the process of negotiating and concluding on new kit contracts. We'll be giving out more information on that very, very shortly. We've met with a lot of sponsors and advertisers who are re-engaging with the club and are coming on board to help us make the next step. And the next step is obviously promotion from this division. That's something that we passionately want, and we're trying to support John as much as we can to achieve that. We still believe it's possible this season, and we'll be pushing for it. Don't want to raise expectations too high, but we will be going for it. And I think that the feedback I get from people I've spoken to in the city is that there is a belief coming back that this club has bottomed out. We've had 5 very difficult years, and we can look forward now with a certain amount of confidence. And with the planning permission that James has been able to achieve for the new grandstand and for the High Home Park facility, I think we've got a real opportunity to make this area an area of real excellence for the city of Plymouth, and for the club to push on from there.
What I'd like to do is spend as little time possible talking about what I think everyone wants to know about, and then spend as much time as possible on questions. So I'll keep it fairly short, just take everyone through where we've got to, what we're currently doing, and what happens going forward. But then, as I say, we've got plenty of time for questions afterwards. There is one question, Chris, that I've been sent from overseas, that if I can just answer that question at some point during the Q&A. Just on the where we've been to, we've got planning permission. There's something called a Section 106 agreement, which is the agreement between us and the council. That's all been finalised, which is largely about improvements in Central Park that we're making. There's something called a judicial review period, which has expired, so we're now fully consented and ready to go. The 3 bits that we're currently working on, and Tony Hopper has been playing a very leading role in this, so he can provide further information, is that we are letting the contracts of work. Kira, the preferred main contractor, but there are 73 different packages of work, which are which are being negotiated at the moment. So there's 73 subcontracts which are being negotiated, and that probably doesn't sound like a horrendous number, but when you have 5 people bidding for a contract and 5 lots of questions for every contract, and there's 73 of them, and then you come back and look at the proposals and people have misunderstood what they're bidding for, or we haven't articulated it very well, and you do that 73 times over. I'm not justifying Tony's existence, but it's not a straightforward process. So, but that process, I think we're due to get the final packages in next week. We've had the significant majority of the packages of these subcontracts back, and that's next week, and then we're hoping to negotiate a fixed price a week or 2 after that. The second part of it is letting up the non-footballing bit. We've got the key tenants in place, and we've got very strong demand for the remaining units, but that process is moving forward. So we're over 2/3 done in terms of letting up the non-footballing space. So that's going smoothly. So the final part of the equation is funding the development. As everyone knows, it's about a £50 million project, and it's been a very interesting process. That and it's not critical of anyone who went before, but I think to say we're going to the institutions, the big pension funds, and the insurance companies. We've now got down to a short list of 4. And they are the sort of biggest and best pension funds and insurance companies in the UK. But it was very interesting, the process. I mean, Plymouth was well known to them, Our Home Park was well known to them, but for very wrong reasons. It was perceived to be a bit of a sort of Walter Mitty type story of schemes that would never happen. So there's been a bit of education we've had to do, but as I say, there's great enthusiasm for the scheme to fund it. So that's basically where we've got to. In terms of putting dates on it, I've made a couple of sort of schoolboy errors in. I sometimes get a lift up to away games from Mr. Newell, who keeps looking up at the trees and saying, "James, the trees are losing their leaves, which means it's autumn. Where's the new grandstand?" So I made one mistake on that. The other one that I made was I thought I was being very clever, and someone said, "When's the grandstand going to come down?" I said, "I don't know." And they said, "Well, will it be before the Portsmouth game, or will it be before the Torquay game, or the Exeter game?" So I said, "Well, it'll definitely still be up during the Portsmouth game." And so a number of people, the day after the Portsmouth game, said, "Why hasn't it come down?" And so I said, "Well, I didn't exactly say it was coming down." So I'm sort of slightly loath to commit to dates, but everyone is working very, very hard to get these final contracts sorted out, and then we'll sort of start work on that. When the work starts, it's going to be, and again, just making sure that the people, I don't build expectations. There's works that need to happen that won't be very visible here. So we're building a new village off-site in terms of the accommodation for players, officials, and so on. That needs to be completed before we take the grandstand down, obviously, and so there's lead time for that. We're then going to have to ask people to move out of the grandstand. And I can see that I'm going to be criticised because everyone's going to turn around and say, "But we moved out last week, and the grandstand's still up. What the hell's going on?" And the reason is that there's asbestos within the building. We know broadly where it is, but we need to do fairly detailed surveys before we knock it down to make sure that we do that safely. And what we don't want is people coming into contact with asbestos. So there's going to be a gap where people are asked to move out, and the grandstand will be there looking very empty. So my apologies for that, but it's the only safe way of doing it. So that's basically where we've got to on the development. I was going to be, there are absolutely, as far as I'm concerned, no questions that are well, there's one question that I'd ask you not to ask, which is what is defined as a penalty on handball in the penalty box, because I'm totally confused on that. Putting that question to one side, any question is very valid. We'll try and answer it as best we can.
You want to start the first question?
Part is, will you still be here, God willing, in 2 years' time? Second part is, in 2 years' time, will the Plymouth Argyle Supporters Board still be in existence under James Brent's chairmanship of this club?
Just on the first question, I've absolutely, and I know there's been things said about James Brent thinking about this. There is absolutely no plans whatsoever for us to sell this club. We've had approaches from people, believe it or not, despite saying that they're interested. What I've said, and it'll be the same answer in 5 years' time, is that if someone comes along who we think can take this club to a place that I can't take it, that is in the interest of Plymouth Argyle, Plymouth and Devon and Cornwall, then we will look at sort of working with that person to do it, whether it's a joint venture, whether it is selling out to them or whatever. But we have absolutely no plans to sell the football club. On the second point, I do think we struggled hard with fan engagement. What is the best way of doing it? We were criticised for setting up the PASB in the light of the fact that we already had the AFT, and I think some people saw that as an attempt to disempower the AFT. It wasn't trying to do that. What it was trying to do was to get a democratically elected group that was reflective of all of the fan base. And the PASB, and again, this is no criticism of anyone who sits on that, people have given up a lot of time and effort to do that. But for a host of reasons, that's not working as well as I think either PASB would like to work or the board would. We will engage with the fans in whichever way the fans want us to engage with them. And if that is the PASB, if that remains the PASB, we're totally supportive of it. If it's a different way of engaging, then we're totally supportive of that. I mean, it's clearly, we have a very broad church, and thank God for that at Plymouth Argyle. And you're never going to get 100% consensus. But if people feel that we should be engaging with the fan base in a different way, then we'll do it. Chris's view, and I hope Chris doesn't mind expressing it, is that we, as a club, should be reaching out and having events like this so that fans who aren't members of the AFT or the PASB or anything else have the ability to raise the questions they want to ask. And I think whichever form of fan engagement we have, that's got to be part of the solution.
Okay, anyone?
But the supplementary to that is then how do you gauge what it is the fans want? Do you have plans to ask them?
Well, I thought the right way of doing it was to get the Electoral Reform Society to run a democratic election of members and get to the conclusion from that. But what we tried to do was to combine that clearly with direct representation from existing fan groups, from the branches and from the AFT. But that seemingly hasn't worked. But I don't know how we do gather that feedback. Maybe that's a further conversation we need to have with Chris as to what is the right route. But I think what I'm learning is that there isn't a route that everyone will feel is perfect. So it's going to be something where whatever route it is going to face criticism from some folk because we have got a very wide church.
Mr. Chairman, you said famously a couple of years ago that you weren't a football man. Is the passion of the Green Army just starting to rub on you a tad or not?
Emotions of the Green Army, I went to 43 out of 46 of the league matches last year, and I found places in the country that I didn't believe existed. I thought some of the names had actually been made up, but the emotions watching Plymouth Argyle, and again, this is very frank, it's am I passionate? Yes. What is the passion? And over the last couple of years, fear has probably been the greatest emotion that I've experienced. I was saying to Rick Cowdery after the game on Wednesday, I said that was a really weird experience because very early on I was convinced we were going to win, and I didn't know why I was watching it because the outcome had been determined, whereas normally it's either absolute fear that we're losing and we're trying to get back, or it's a very narrow lead that we're trying to protect. So lots and lots of emotions. The thing which I hadn't realised when I got involved, which has been really, really helpful to me, is that I tend to work very long hours away from home and so on. And so coming every Saturday to watch a game of football, I've got 5 kids who are all sort of relatively young. So leaving them behind on the one day that I'd naturally see them, didn't see my guy. The great thing is that they all love Argyle, and because they're all the older ones are teenagers, there's sort of Twitter accounts and everything. So I learn more when I eventually get home in the night from my kids than I learn from the chief executive and his team. Emotions of the Green Army, I went to 43 out of 46 of the league matches last year, and I found places in the country that I didn't believe existed. I thought some of the names had actually been made up, but the emotions watching Plymouth Argyle, and again, this is very frank, it's am I passionate? Yes. What is the passion? And over the last couple of years, fear has probably been the greatest emotion that I've experienced. I was saying to Rick Cowdery after the game on Wednesday, I said that was a really weird experience because very early on, I was convinced we were going to win, and I didn't know why I was watching it because the outcome had been determined. Whereas normally it's either absolute fear that we're losing and we're trying to get back, or it's a very narrow lead that we're trying to protect. So lots and lots of emotions. The thing which I hadn't realised when I got involved, which has been really, really helpful to me, is that I tend to work very long hours away from home and so on. And so coming every Saturday to watch a game of football, I've got 5 kids who are all sort of relatively young. So leaving them behind on the one day that I'd naturally see them, didn't seem like the great thing is that they all love Argyle, and because they're all the older ones are teenagers, the sort of Twitter accounts and everything. So I learn more when I eventually get home in the night from my kids than I learn from the chief executive and his team.
So when we're in the playoff final, then you'll be dyeing your hair green, yes?
Well, I was thinking that if we beat Man United to get to the 4th round, I might actually do a streak across the pitch. But then I spoke to the chief executive, and I'd get FA sanction for that. So.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Very quickly, Martin. This is for you. It's on the footballing side. Have you engaged with the stewards, and what is their policy after the shambles on Wednesday night? Those guys could have had a knife. Lucky they didn't, but no stewards moved and they just ran around the pitch. What is the policy with the stewards? Do they go on? Do they stop them? Or what are we going to do in the future? As I say, repeating myself, those guys could have had a knife.
Yeah, your point's well made. We had some concerns, obviously, on Wednesday night with the stewarding. We had a debrief the next morning with safety officers, and apparently the procedure, the policy that is recommended by the police is that the stewards should not chase anybody that's entered the pitch of play unless there is a real fear for the safety of the players or the officials. Now, there were errors made, clearly. The guy shouldn't have been allowed on the pitch in the first place, particularly at that time of the game when stewards were pitch side, and we should have apprehended them once they had come onto the pitch immediately after they dispersed. We did manage to apprehend one. The other one has subsequently been arrested by the police. They will be appearing in court in the next 10 days or so. They will get lifetime bans. They have already been banned by the club. And I have asked for the whole policy to be reviewed. Having sort of questioned the safety officers and been assured by them that they were carrying out procedures that have been recommended by the police, that takes it to another level in terms of being challenged and reviewing what we should do and handle it in the future.
Will there be an FA fine? Has the referee reported it?
It's a mandatory report by the referee and by the assessor. We've had a letter from the FA already. They've just asked for our observations. I'm not expecting any financial penalty for it, but we will obviously be scrutinised in future.
Being a season ticket holder and a follower of the Argyle since the age of 4, I feel that the loyal supporters don't get the rub of the green or being season ticket holders. My question would be, the club consider including cup matches, i.e. League or FA Cup, to season ticket holders for the first and second games in the competition, or a home draw only?
Yeah, this is an awkward one because obviously cup matches are shared gates. We don't keep all the money for games that are played at home in any of the cups. We have to share it with the visiting team. So to talk about sort of including in the season ticket price, the price per ticket for a cup game is awkward. It also often depends on who the opposition is in the rounds of the cups as to what the prices are. We may take a different view if we're playing a non-league side at home, or we've got Wolves in the second round of the cup. We may feel that the price of that game is justified at a higher level. So it's a difficult one, but every season when we set prices, we will review the way we do it. We'll review the value that we're trying to give to season ticket holders, and we're very, very passionate about our season ticket holders because they are the people that commit every season to paying for every game, and I know that we've got to keep an eye on ensuring that we give good value to those people that are willing to make that commitment.
will the season ticket holders who've got designated seats in the grandstand, will they have a designated seat in the ground?
When they bought their season ticket, they bought a ticket in the grandstand, and they also nominated a second seat that they'll go to when the grandstand comes down.
And as a follow-up to that, when the new grandstand's open, will those people go back to their designated seat locations in the new grandstand?
Well, it's a different format of seating, so it won't be exactly the same. But clearly, in terms of we are looking at some premier seating products. But generally speaking, I mean, clearly the existing grandstand season ticket holders will get sort of pride of choice in the new grandstand. But because the format's different, it won't be the same seat in exactly the same place.
What are the provisions for motorcycle parking and in particular storage of safety equipment, being a £500, £600 crash helmet, opposed to leaving it on top of a locker with no security? Because I'll be charging you the bill if I have to drive, if I can't ride back with a helmet.
The honest answer is I don't know about that. On the push bikes, we've got very extensive provision for push bikes, but I appreciate a motorbike is different. We'll need to look into that and come back to you. Could I just take your contact details at the end, and then we'll get that and come back.
The gates at the front entrance there, there's a locker which isn't lockable. So you put your helmets on top of there. I came up to the last game and I was told no store your helmets in the shop. Went to the shop, don't know anything about it, went back up there. So there's a lot of expensive helmets there during the game with no facility to guard them or anything. So the question is, A, motorcycle parking, is there any? And again, the provision of the helmets. It's not good as it stands at the moment, but we're hoping it's going to improve. And when you add it to carbon footprint and everything else, there is a good case for that facility.
Could we, what's probably best then, given that there's more than one party interested, should we come up with a response and put it on the official screen? Is that the best way of doing it? And then, but please, shout if it's not a complete answer.
A couple of questions. I heard a rumour about the car park, or the proposed car park underneath the ground, in that NCP had pulled out because they hadn't realised that they were going to be charging for people to park, when really people can park for free in the park and ride car park. Could you allay those fears? Because to me that was quite a biggie. And also on the development, could you also assure me that all the local community groups that are interested in Central Park will be acknowledged and spoken to regarding all the planned landscaping that you are putting in with the Section 106. But another question, very quickly, sorry. Could somebody please explain why Argyle have gone away from green and have gone to pale blue? I can only think Manchester City whenever I see it, and it really does upset me. If I knew there was a real good reason for it, then maybe I would be okay.
Shall I just start with the first question? And I think Tony has been spending a huge amount of time with the community forum, which is the group that pulls together the Central Park users on how the money is spent there. So if I could pass on to Tony on that. On the car park, we, to my knowledge, have never had any conversations with ACP. I've never heard of ACP, to be quite honest. Right, no, there's been no discussions that I've been aware of, and nothing to pull away. We have got an operator of the car park as a pay car park. It is clearly absolutely right that there is a complexity on the car parking, that we are building quite an expensive car park. It needs to be paid for, and we clearly have the Life Centre car park and the Park and Ride next door, which are free, so that there's quite a complex parking management arrangement that needs to be put in place. And then clearly there's the, as you may know, we as a club manage the Park and Ride car park on match days and event days. So again, that needs to extend to how we actually manage the larger car parking with greater use. But there's been a lot of effort that's gone into that. On the Central Park investment, there has been very extensive dialogue with the interest group. There's something called the Community Forum. It doesn't meet every Monday, but it seems to meet a lot of Mondays. But if I pass across to Tony, who's part of that committee.
The Central Park Community Forum was set up to be a consultation forum for all the works that are going to be done in Central Park. As James said, we've been meeting regularly on Mondays. We haven't met for a few weeks. We've been finalising the design for what's going to be reinstated in Zoo Field. But that forum exists, and it was set up purely for the purpose to which you allude. So I think we've covered that, unless you disagree.
Who's been involved in those meetings? Which groups? Do you know?
A lot of us, Friends of Central Park and FA, a whole load of Central Park. Devontree Partnership, yes.
7 minor leagues.
Over minor leagues. A whole host of community.
The council, of course.
And of course the council, yeah.
Okay, and pale blue shirt.
Pale blue, what's that one?
Well, I didn't have any involvement in the choice of that, I have to admit, but I did rather like it. But I mean, green is clearly our colour, and green, as long as I'm here, will be Argyle's colour that's used on home strip. Clearly, in terms of the away strip, we need a different colour, and that's where we have lots of debate on different shades of green and different shapes of green, and so there's lots of green debate when we choose a new strip. But in terms of the away strip, that clearly needs to be a different colour. I thought the baby blue was actually rather good, but I can say because I didn't have any. No, there's some shaking of heads. Any nodding of heads? Yeah, great. Well, we've got some supporters. What probably makes sense, Martin, could you talk about, we are going through a process again of fan engagement in terms of choice of strip. Are you able to say anything on that?
As I said to you earlier, we are in the process of finalising a new kit supply contract. It will be our intention to go through extensive consultation on the design and shade of the kit. I know there's a lot of debate, has been a lot of debate about the shirts, and there always will be. It's an emotive subject. So I've had it at every club I've been at, and all we can do is offer supporters the opportunity to make their choices so that we have a consensus. But we will never please everybody. I mean, the young lady over there said she doesn't like the pale blue. The pale blue is sold very well in the shop, so there's quite a few people that do like it. But we'll be talking to PASB, and we'll be talking to supporters about the kits for next season. And we will probably do something similar to what I understand happened last season, and do get the Herald involved in organising a vote on some choices that we're given. Okay, does that answer?
Thank you.
The grandstand has a number of elements to it, some of which the retail units are going to be retained by Acheron. Some of the elements are unknown, and one particular element is what's euphemistically known as community facilities. It amounts to about 16,000 square feet on 3 levels, and for those who are not spatially aware, that's the size of an Aldi or Lidl food store, so it's quite substantial. And nobody knows what it is, and we're only a short time away, seemingly, from contracts being let. So first of all, could either you or Tony give us some indication of what exactly that is? And one possibility, and you may like to rule it in or rule it out, was the studio school, because you're on record at the start of the year saying the studio school could be at Town Park. So that's one part of the question. The second part, because there are a number of community facilities within the grandstand, we've got a medical school as well, of a similar size. The grandstand and the ground is owned by the City Council, and the football club has an opportunity, I think it's October 2016, to buy the ground from City Council, roughly at today's value, something around £2 million, when of course the asset value of the £10 million grandstand would be far in excess of that. Now, first of all, are you likely to take up the opportunity to purchase the ground at that stage? And if you're not, the next review, I think, is 5 years after that. What worries me is, and you've said you may sell on to somebody else in the future. Somebody else could buy the ground, and we'd lose control over the football club, or the City Council would. And it's a serious question. I'm not sure whether you've signed the lease arrangement with the City Council. Is it a possibility you could take that option for purchase out, so that we could all be reassured for the future that the football ground belongs to the people of Plymouth?
Just in terms of the retail units, be absolutely clear on that, and let's just get a bit techy. There are either 2 or 4, depending on the size of it, on the ground floor retail units that sit within the grandstand. The freehold interest of the grandstand remains with the council. We have the ability to draw down 125-year leases on those units, and then what we're doing as part of this institutional sale to the pension fund of the development, which funds the development effectively. That's part of that sale. So Akron doesn't end up owning those units. An institutional investor will end up owning a long leasehold interest in those units, but the freehold on that sits with the council. Or as Graham sort of said in his supplementary, we've got an option to purchase that. In terms of the option to purchase, can I deal with that? And then I think there's a bit in the middle, Graham, and if I don't answer it, Chad, we've genuinely given no thought to what happens in 2016. I mean, there's a series of things that are clearly, and again, I'm not teaching my grandmother's had to suck eggs here, but are critically important for this club, which in near term, we need to get the footballing performance up. We need to get the new grandstand built, and we need to deal with the legacy debt issue. So those are the things that I'm worried about at the moment. Buying back the grandstand is not something I'm even thinking about at the moment. So, I mean, my personal view, and you know, it's great, isn't it, that we've got a sort of, you know, intelligent people with different views. I think if we can buy back the grandstand and save the club 160 grand in rent, I think that is positive rather than negative. But I do respect your sort of contention that if someone, you know, with malintent got hold of the freehold, they might be able to. I mean, the great thing about it, there's real.
It's a 30-year lease, so we're talking about. Sorry, it's a 30-year lease. So when your successor will have the opportunity to purchase the ground every 5 years, you have the opportunity now. I assume you haven't signed a new lease arrangement with the City Council just yet, to take that option out so that everybody can be reassured that in the future the ground is always going to be owned by the City of Plymouth, particularly, as I say, community facilities, a medical school, which are all non-football related activities within the grandstand. Seems to me that should be community related and belong to the people of Plymouth, and they benefit from it, rather than somebody who can come in 5-10 years time, charge the football club whatever they like in terms of rent, and charge people the school and so on.
My apologies, sorry, we're probably talking across purposes. My assumption is that if we exercise the option will be exercised in the name of Plymouth Argyle Football Club Limited, and Plymouth Argyle Football Club Limited will end up as the owner of that.
No, I understand. It's then when you said you potentially could sell the football club on to somebody else. It's the reassurance that somebody else couldn't then start charging outlandish rent to the football club. You know, it's quite possible. Football's littered with a history of these sort of things happening. And all I want to be reassured is that lots of people in here fought long and hard to get this football club back on the rails. The City Council stepped in and now have the asset under their control for the people of Plymouth. And I just want to be reassured somehow that that's going to continue long into the future. And I'm just asking you whether you can give any reassurances on that, apart from the question I asked about the community facilities.
Well, sorry, I'll come back. That was the third one. I'll come back to the community facilities. There's a slight sort of difference in the analysis, but as I say, my contention, if we have the money to put into the football club, to enable the football club to buy the stadium back, I think I'd be inclined to do that, because my personal view is that's in the interest of the football club. Now, I totally get the point that you can say, well, it may be in the short or medium term, but you're certainly going to die at some point, so at some point it'll cease to be within your control. Then at that point it could be a nasty person that's got malintent. And it's a balanced judgment, isn't it? Is the club better off owning its own freehold or not? And I think you can argue that both ways. Sorry, one point of correction, and then onto the community facility. The medical centre, it's a medical centre, not a medical school, and that doesn't sit within the grandstand. It's in the piece of land that's next to the grandstand, and so that's part of the freehold ownership, or does become part of the freehold ownership, which is sold to the institution. The community facility in the grandstand, there are discussions going on as to exactly what that may be. A studio school is one potential option that is subject to grant funding being received, and there is no certainty on that grant funding being received. But again, from the football club standpoint, just why would it be great to have a studio school there? In my view, it is as a vocational school, bringing people who are interested in sport, in leisure, in entertainment, bringing them into a site like that. There is nothing like that in the country. It's great for our kids. From the football club standpoint, it creates a land value. We'll build that. The build cost comes out of it, but we won't charge any development profit or anything else. That creates a land value, and that land value helps us to deal with the debt position of the club. So, that's the logic from the club standpoint.
Right. Graham, last come back.
Yeah. So, as I understand it, the decision on the studio school is early next year in terms of grant funding. Are you waiting for that decision to occur before you commit? Because obviously it's going to assist in some form of funding in the grandstand.
No, we very intentionally looked at it as two separate contracts. One for the studio school or other community facility, and one for the rest of it. The reason we're doing that is twofold. One, it doesn't create time and contagion between the two. We are delayed in starting the whole thing because we're depending on some Department for Education grant. The other reason for doing that, as I say, that the full benefit, we're very keen that it's very clear to everyone that the full benefit of building that site comes into the football club, and no one says it's gone to Acheron or it's gone to someone else. So we've kept it separate very intentionally.
PA system in Devonport End, and we've raised it quite a few times with stewards. We can't hear a thing, whether it's an emergency call out, whether it's a team being read out. We haven't been able to hear anything for how long, Chris? 12 months, possibly longer. I'm sure it must be a health and safety issue. We just can't hear a thing. That's the first question, and is anything going to be done about it? And the second question is, I think we'll probably all agree that Luke is having a fantastic season, and I'm just wondering whether there's any thought of extending his contract.
No, I have heard reports about the PA system. We are looking at it. I'm being waved at by Trevor over there.
Can I just say?
Yeah, please do, Trevor.
It was drawn to our attention. We went and looked at it before the game on Wednesday. We altered the settings on it because someone had turned them down, and I checked throughout the game on Wednesday and it was much better. If it's not the same today, please let us know and we'll look at it again. But it was better on Wednesday for those of you that were there Wednesday.
Okay, I think that there's some work we need to do on that. I mean, we are looking at PA systems anyway as part of the development. When the grandstand comes down, we've got to put new systems in there. Obviously, it's a logical time to try and improve that type of facility throughout the stadium. But if we need to do something in the interim and we can, then we obviously will. Okay. Yeah, well, obviously Trevor reacted to some criticism from previous match and tried to eradicate it. If there is a real problem again today, please report it back. And I mean, I guess you were there on Wednesday night and there was no difference. So if there is no difference today, then please let us know and we'll get to work on it. Okay. Sorry, can you remind me about your contract question, which I was hoping to forget. Obviously, all players are subject to their contracts being reviewed at various times during the season. I think I agree with you that Luke's having a fantastic time, and I think that the manager would very much like to extend him. But it takes 2 or 3 or 4 to tango, doesn't it? You know, it's the manager, the player's agent, the player's wife, and so on. So we'll have to see. But if we're putting a team together that is successful and we've got players that are doing well, clearly we'll want to retain them.
Is there any update on the supporters bar? And the second one, James, you made reference to Premier seating. Does that mean to say they're going to have different prices with the new stand?
On the Premier seating, there'll be a relatively small number of seats within the grandstand, which are Premier seating. and those will be sold as a separate package. But in terms of the seating within the grandstand, generally the other seating, there is no intention at the moment to differentially price. No is the answer. The supporters bar, and I don't want any rumours to start, but the chief executive is probably his biggest passion is the supporters bar. So he's been working very diligently to come up with a proposal as to how the football club, working with partners, mentioning no names, would provide that facility. So that's still work in progress. Martin, is there anything else you want to say on that? Or?
No, that's a very accurate answer.
Okay. There is a proposal that the chief executive and his team are working up with others to have a sports bar in the new grandstand. Yes, we've not finished that discussion, so yes is the answer. Right. Sorry. The overseas question, because no one's raised it so far, is about grandstand capacity. So. It was raised by an overseas fan who's not able to attend today, so I think it's appropriate to respond to it. I mean, the broad thesis is that when we last went from this division up to the Championship and back down again, we've got about 40% more supporters now as a League Two club than we had last time we were a League Two club. I haven't checked the stats, but that was the sort of thesis that was presented. And on sort of popular match days in the first season in the Championship, we were, up at the sort of late 17,000s, and perhaps on a couple of games higher than that. I'm looking at Graham, don't know why, but there were times anyway that the 17,800 capacity would not be sufficient. Last time we went into the Championship, and the question was again whether that was short-sighted. And again, I'm paraphrasing. It was a very polite email. But was that short-sighted of us not building capacity for when we're next back in the Championship? And again, I appreciate I've responded to that question on a few occasions, but just trying to respond again. If money was no object, and if it was affordable, and there was no other good cause to spend money on, would I rather have a 22, 23, 24,000 seat stadium? Or an 18,000 seat stadium? And the answer is fairly straightforward. You would go for the bigger stadium. The truth of it is that the funding of the new grandstand is very, very tight, and we do need to make sure that we get the investment into the hospitality part of it and the banqueting part of it in particular to generate non-match day income. And that's not solely to provide a great facility that Plymouth doesn't have for business and other users to come in and sort of have great conferencing and banqueting facilities. It is because this club, to get back up to the Championship and sustain, does need non-match day revenues, and the match day revenues, the non-match day revenues we're generating from the current facilities are not sufficient. So if money was no object, then it would be better to have a larger grandstand than a smaller one. Totally accept that. We can't afford it while producing the facilities that the club needs to justify it. And if I'm totally honest, and again, this is I've got some wonderful internet groupies that spend a lot of time sort of expressing their support for me. So just giving them a bit of ammunition for the next phase. If I did have an extra £5 million that was unallocated to add additional seats, would I rather put that into additional seat capacity that may be used in a season in 5 years' time, or would I rather set up a not-for-profit company that provided healthcare needs for the elderly population who next winter are going to be struggling? I would not build additional capacity today in 5 years' time. And I know that won't be popular with everyone, and I know I'll get some abuse for it, but that is my view. I don't think... The great thing about football, and one thing that, in terms of the economics of football seating, is when you have sustainable demand for a seat, it makes sense to build it. You don't need someone to be a great benefactor to build an additional seat that you can fill, that you can sell. It makes economic sense. The payback is very short. What doesn't make sense is building seat capacity today that you hope you might have a need for in 5 years' time. It definitely doesn't make economic sense, and I personally don't think it makes a moral social sense. But I appreciate that other people have different views on that.
first question is, I was a little bit, maybe not concerned, but I noticed that Swindon said that we put in an offer for Lee Cox that was derisory. I'd just like to ask just how competitive is the playing budget this season in relation to the rest of the league? Shall I ask the other two now? Or?
Can I deal with that one first?
I think that Swindon's comment was inappropriate. We were interested in Lee Cox, and the facts are that we offered to take Lee Cox on exactly the same money that we paid last season for him, and Swindon determined that that was not acceptable, and they wanted twice the money. Now, if that is derisory, then that's their opinion, it's not mine.
The other two questions I'd like to ask is that you said just then that the studio school would be run by the football club, not by Acheron. Is there any chance that on match day, when the studio school's not being used, that might be used to provide extra match day revenue at all? And the second of the two-part question is the capacity is going to be 17,800. Would you be able to tell me maybe how much that may be eaten away by segregation, camera podiums and that sort of thing? Those are my two questions.
Just addressing the first question, to be clear, sorry, if there is a studio school in the corner, it won't be run by Plymouth Argyle, it'll be run by a college. It's just that the revenues and benefit will accrue to the football club.
Okay, but could that still mean the club could use it?
Yeah, that's exactly right. What we, if it is a studio school, and again, I hope I'm not breaching any confidences, but the whole thesis is that this is vocational learning and training in a working environment. So, from both our standpoint and the college's standpoint, it is wonderful that people can learn the catering hospitality industry during the week, and then in their classroom they can actually put it into action at the weekend. So that's an interaction. We again will have some incredibly, people who are interested in kitchens, it's interesting, for others it's not really, but we'll have, we're looking at over 740 covers, so we can entertain 740 people to a sit-down silver service meal, which means we have a pretty big industrial kitchen, which again for people who want to learn to become a chef and so on, it's a great facility. So it's if that happens, it's a two-way house. They'll be able to use our facilities, we'll be able to use theirs, and it works both. On the segregation issue, we've been through that so many times. The numbers have changed the margin. Is it 400? Is that the right number, Martin? This is total capacity taken out through segregation.
Yes.
I mean, it clearly varies on a match by match, and I'm probably teaching my grandmother how to suck eggs here, but it varies on a match by match basis. But I think the allocated for segregation was 400. But I can come back again. I'll get something put up on the OS on that.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you.
Last question.
How privileged does it feel to be the only sponsored chief executive in the Football League? And secondly, if you were given a sum of money to donate to a charity by a Lincoln Taxi Company, which charity would you give it to?
Obviously, I'm delighted to be the only chief executive to be sponsored in the Football League. Let's hope it starts a trend. And it is the London branch of the supporters that have sponsored me, so thank you for that. I think that was to compensate for the fact that I didn't get back till 2:30 in the morning after the Lincoln game, thanks to Lincoln Taxi Service letting us down. So they're making a donation, are they? Well, can we make that to the local hospice? St Luke's? Okay. Does that answer your question? Thank you. Thank you, Lee.